But the Missouri is different. I don't understand.
All right, call Mark, he's gonna bring that to me. I call him, well, when I thought they were gonna do it about a month ago. He's had like 4
You're as good as what you used to be. I've been at probably about 3 or 4 years. Sears catalog, yeah.
But speaking of operation of the whole,
I think it's artificially. Yeah.
and anyway, hopefully this week, I'll give you a call when I'm sure. Maybe I'll try to start the
Are we ready to go?
I think we're ready to go. Evening, everybody. How you doing?
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Everybody ready for the new year? Hoping things go a little better this year than last year.
We hope. So far.
Okay.
Well, at least we got a new president.
Wow.
Get that one out of the way. All right, so first off, I want to welcome many of our guests and visitors. We have several guests here. I know I met a couple of you back there. Roy has something to show us, show and tell. He needs some help with something here towards the end of the meeting. And yeah, your main interest is that project, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And then who else we have here? Guests.
Brad Taylor.
How you doing?
I met Les and he invited me. He knew from me buying tools that I had interest in stuff, so.
Well, welcome.
Yeah.
And then we have one new member right over here.
Yep.
Can you introduce yourself there, right here? All right.
I think I can get up.
No.
Dan Holland, and came last month, 2 months ago, and I decided to come back. And,
Good.
Thank
Well,
you.
glad
Thank
you
you,
did.
Dan.
Thanks.
Welcome to our club of old people.
I think everybody else looks familiar with getting back. I know there's a little while where I didn't recognize anybody because we weren't here for so long. So got treasurer's report.
We've got the end of the year logged in, and the balance is roughly $4,255. So we're in good shape. We've got a couple bills already for this new year, but only a couple $100, so we're not in problem. We're in good shape. While I've got you, anybody who needs an updated name tag, let me know, or needs a new one, if they're gonna be around, because I'm gonna put in an order either this month or next. Usually like to order about at least six at a time, but we'll just see how it goes.
Thanks, Steve. Old business. We voted on buying a projector to replace this one so we could actually see it with the lights on. Prices are still coming down, so we'll wait another couple months. Yeah, we don't want to spend what they're asking right now. Bob, do you have any updates with our Mark Adams presentation?
No, I mean, we're set for March the 5th. He's also going to talk a little bit about Mark Adams, the school, everything the night before. It was pretty well set. We just have to get the AV set up for it.
Okay, just hammering out details and then be ready to go.
What's the date of the March meeting?
The March meeting is March, it will be the first Wednesday in March.
I think we have a meeting right before the workshop.
Correct.
What's the workshop on? What's he
It's going
doing?
to be on joinery.
Oh.
Yeah.
And to answer your question,
How does that work? Is everybody just welcome to come, or you gotta pay for the?
He's going to show different joints in
No, I
real
mean,
time.
Well, I think they were gonna charge a fee, weren't
Yeah,
they?
there's a fee.
yeah.
there'll be a fee. This is more of a seminar workshop, so it'll be a much smaller fee than what our workshops normally are.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things we gotta hammer out is how many people we can fit in there and safely and what we can need to charge for that, so.
Where is the location gonna be?
Sangamon,
It's gonna be at Sangamon Reclaim,
Reclaim.
which is.
All
which is
right,
here.
very good, very good.
Yeah.
so. Oh, yeah, I had to answer your question. It is, March the 2nd. The Wednesday before Mark Adams. Website, we're still getting that going. If you're a newer member, you'll see your name in there and you'll get an email here soon. I just been having trouble adding members, getting some of the kinks worked out on that. And then I'll get that turned over to Terry Tuttle, who's gonna be the person taking care of that from this point forward, thankfully. I'm not a fan of doing the website stuff. And then dues, that's another old business, come new business sort of thing. If you haven't paid your dues for this year, please see Steve, and he will happily take your money. Any other old business anybody can think about?
How much are dues?
30.
30.
30 for the year.
This is another free year?
No.
That's right.
I got $4,000.
Yeah. No, we made it to most of our meetings last year. Were we cancel it all for COVID last year? Did we have 12 months of meetings?
2020 missed 3 meetings,
Yeah.
and 2019 missed 7 or 8.
Oh, I think it was that many. Yeah, so, any other old business? Oh, okay, new business. If anybody's interested in learning how to do that camera stuff, please let me know, because there will be at least one meeting that I can't be at. Next year, the May meeting I'll have to miss, due to a class I'm taking.
Dustin,
Yes.
could I just say
Oh,
thank
please.
you to everyone that helped getting my stuff up to the auction? We had the auction Saturday and everything just went beautifully. I know I've even lost sight of the names of some of you, but a lot of you have helped, and this auction just went so well. And now I've got one more in about 3 weeks, and that'll finish it up, and then we can move into our new duplex that is part of the Presbyterian Center. So thank you all so much for helping, appreciate that so much. Some of you were at the sale, it went real well.
I think some of us spent too much of that sale.
That's why I didn't go. No, I wanted to.
Any other new business? I have one other thing, something I want to do kind of as a president's challenge to the club for this coming year. And it's kind of a scrap wood challenge when you're bored, is to make toys, small, simple toys that then as a club we'll donate to the Children's Hospital.
Good idea. Wonderful.
And then I have a $100 gift card to CU Workshop that I personally am going to donate to whoever donates the most toys to this cause. So at the Christmas party this December, whoever has donated the most toys throughout the year, will get that gift card. So I'll upload some simple toy plans to our website. So if you don't have anything and you're bored, you can just print them right off of our website and reach in and grab whatever scrap wood you got laying around and do that. So I want to, with everything we do, have something that we can do to give back to the community in some way, and I figure this might be a good way to start that as a kind of a president's challenge to the members. So, any questions on old business, new business, anything like that? Yes.
I was just wondering, how many members have paid their dues so far?
Oh, roughly 18.
Okay, that's cool. And you had a number of them mailed in, right?
Yes.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking that is because I sent everybody I probably should have brought this on their old business, but I sent everybody in the club a letter. And if you got it, it probably looked something like this without the return address. And I just asked everybody to pay their dues and appreciated, said thanks for all the time and trouble and blah, blah, blah. So if you didn't get one, the reason why was because you were not on the initial mailing list that we used, with one exception. The post office was nice enough to send me a little bit the only thing that was left of the envelope was my, return address. There was one of them that got shoved through the cancellation machine, and it must have been shredded, because that's all they were nice enough to return to me. So if you did not get a letter from me, it wasn't because I forgot or was being inconsiderate. The post office screwed you up. So anyway, we got, I got 2 of them back that said, I no longer want to be part of the club. And I had 2 of them come back where the address was on, I had 3 of them come back where the address was different. Okay, 2 of which I was able to correct, and 1 of which I still need to talk to somebody. So that's why I had a couple things on my mind when I sent that note out to everybody. First of all, thanks for staying with the club during COVID, and please pay your dues on time. And I would really like to update everybody's contact information, just to catch up with changes. And I think all 3 of them worked out, so. That's it,
It looks like we're up to 20.
up to 20. I forgot my check tonight.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the program. I think, Tamara, you're gonna go first, correct?
Yep. Okay, so where do you want this? Is up here fine?
That's fine, I can just move this.
So I'm gonna be presenting about my table. I don't have a presentation or anything, so it's gonna be a little boring. But, so this is a mid-century modern table that I made in a class actually at Mark Adams School of Woodworking, with, Chris Goffner. As you can see, it's
No, he's fine.
as you can see, it's mid-century modern, so not a lot of harsh edges, very curved. I think the only real harsh edges are actually in the drawer itself, which that's understandable. You know, it's kind of hidden away. And so very sleek and nice angles on this, very symmetrical. I like the I do like the angled out legs, very nice. And I've got, okay, so when I built this, I actually, before the class I had to make these legs myself, turned them on the lathe. But actually I made a little oopsie, I made the tenons a bit too small, as one does. So I had some fun times during the class, you know, trying to get everything to work out with that, you know. But mistakes are just character in the piece, you know, so I actually, I'm gonna move this real quick. I've not put the knob on yet, so ignore that. But I chose wood that was kind of, most people wouldn't like the wood, but I thought it had character. So it's got like a little knot there, and if you look at the top, it's got actually quite a few little knots there. But I thought that it looked beautiful. So I decided to choose that wood myself for that. Because I have quite a bit of character, so should my piece. And I think actually for me, the most fun part about this wasn't actually my mistake with the tenons. It's that this is it's a regular half-line dovetail, you know, box, but it's angled. If you can see, it's trapezoidal shaped. So that was a fun thing to learn. And this was actually my first time doing a whole table by myself. So I got to learn a whole bunch with how actually you build a table and how you build like a drawer with this. So, you know, you just cut a little groove in here to put the panel in. I didn't know that. And these things are actually, so most of this I didn't glued up now, but it looked just like this before I glued it up because it actually has like a stabilizing little pin in here that you can't see anymore because it's sawed off, but it is, let's see, where is that pin? There is a little something of it, but I can't even find it now, so there's actually, yeah. So you can see it, there's little stabilizing pins in there, which is very nice. Made life a lot easier for the glue up. And probably should put another coat on it, you know? I kind of finished this up in a hurry as I was going off to college, so, yep. Very
Sure.
fun.
It's good.
Any questions?
Yeah, in that class, did they teach you how to do your, dovetails on an
Yeah,
angle?
yeah, they did.
Taught y'all how to do that?
I had already done basic dovetails before, actually, out of Mark Adams' classes where I learned those as well, actually, in Mark's joinery class itself, which is actually quite a fun class to take. Very instructive, but I'd never done them on an angle before, and he actually taught us how to get them on an angle. You can, if you look inside the drawer, you can tell I'm not that great at it, because there's definitely some gaps there you can see, but no one can see it from the outside, so that's fine. Any other questions?
It is Jerry, right?
Yeah, it's cherry. Yep. I like the look of cherry.
That's pretty peaceful. You did a nice job.
Thanks.
Tamara, is this a project for you? Are you gonna keep this, or do you?
I will. I can't take it with me to college though, because college is in Idaho, and that's quite a ways to drive it. So once I get my own place, after I graduate college, probably I'll take it with me. But for now, it's at Mom and Dad's house, along with my couch that's also mine when I move out. So, fun story with the couch. I was born on the couch, so it's mine, you know. Yep. So, and I have a stool also that I made that I'm gonna take with me when I get my own place. They're just gonna be furnitureless when I move out, I guess, you know?
I'll just have to make more pieces, I guess.
Yeah, it's true.
How's college?
It's pretty good. Life's doing great, you know? Well, currently I'm majoring in history. It might change, we'll see, but, yep.
Good job.
We're good.
Hey.
Here, I'll slip mine in yours.
I'll take a minute to just mention, when she was taking that class, I already have taken multiple classes at Mark Adams. And after like about my third or fourth class, Mark actually came to me and said, do you ever want to assist here? So I actually was assisting with that particular class. And one of the best things, and I think some of you probably have had an opportunity to experience this yourself, is when you're working with other people on their projects, you learn more than they do. Because you get to go, oh, they're coming up to a problem. Hold on, you don't want to do that, type of process. And so for me, I enjoy assisting in classes more than I do probably taking classes at this point in my education of
Okay.
woodworking.
I would like to point out he did not favor me in the class at all.
No, actually, I was.
He probably made life harder for me in the class.
I would say so, yes. That's probably a fair assessment. So, the only way that I made life easier for her is she had access to all of my tools. That's the only way that it was,
Well, and you
easier.
paid for it, so.
Yeah, I did pay, yeah. Okay. Are we ready? Hopefully this transferred over. We had to switch formats. This is actually, believe it or not, this is a miniature highboy. So it is not completed. I actually would have had it completed by now, but I actually decided I didn't want to start doing the glue up process on it until after doing the presentation. That way, if anybody has a question or something, I might be able to get the piece off to be able to show you how that joint works. But primarily what I want to do is I kind of want to walk through some of the more advanced jointery without, I'm not going to tell you how to make these joints. That's not what I'm here to try to do today. But instead, we're going to try to talk about where you might use some joints, where you might not. So half of you guys are experts on this and the other half aren't. If you're an expert on it, feel free to jump in when people ask questions. How's that for a deal? So this is the miniature highboy without any molding, without any trim. This is just its basic casework. Go ahead and go to the next slide there, Dustin.
See if it
Hopefully we have a next slide.
Yeah, I gotta get to that.
Ah, there we go. So, while this is one case, this is actually two cases, because the top and the bottom are their own individual pieces. This is a miniature highwood, because typically these are about 7 to 10 feet tall. This is not anywhere near 7 to 10 feet tall. So it's a great shrunken down piece, which is actually kind of nice, because getting this in and out of the truck is a whole nother beast than trying to get a 8 or 9 foot tall piece out of the truck. So we've got the upper case and we've got the lower case, and these are the two extremes really. When you're looking at a highboy piece, typically they're made as the two different extremes of casework, and we'll talk about we'll talk about how they're the two different extremes. Let's go ahead and let's go to the next slide. So here's the upper case. I intentionally took close-up pictures because there's no way for you guys to see all of the jointery and other things that are here. And I've pulled everything apart once already to take the pictures. If you can make it out here, there are dovetails. And on this upper piece, all 4 of the outer corners are dovetailed together. Now, the reason why we can get away with that is that the grain of this piece and the grain of this piece come together, and they're coming in this orientation like this. So what happens as humidity goes up to wood, and this is all flat sawn wood, just it's going to expand and contract. So because it's dovetails, they'll expand and contract together for the most part. And since we don't have to, and we also have the strongest portions of that coming together. If we did not, we wouldn't be using dovetails here. Because then if one of these was going cross grain, it would be very, very weak and very fragile. It could snap itself off. So let's go with the next picture. So inside, what you're looking at right here, let's see, let me make sure I've got the right side here for you guys, are these inner corners right here. There is another dovetail involved. It's a half dovetail, and it's only on the lower section of it. You could do it with a dovetail that's on both ends, but there's no need to do that. It turns out to be more work than what is necessary. So there is a half dovetail there, and what that does is that prevents the case. Let's see how much I can beat up on the case. It prevents the case from ever coming out, and because the shelves are there, it won't go back in on itself either. So it should maintain a strong case. I can't. I can't for multiple reasons, so you know. The other thing to notice, and if you look at it closely, I should have probably taken a picture from that angle. You will notice that the individual shelf pieces where the drawers are going to be actually sticks out in front of the case. Anybody know why? At this point, why does it look like that?
Trim around it, or is it before I bring it down, so you get some kind of decorative trim?
Well, and it's not even necessarily a decorative trim, but there will be another trim piece that gets glued onto the front so that you cannot see the dovetails. You'll see that in the traditional pieces, that they don't show that. Any joinery is always covered up in pieces before about 1900. Typically you will see all the joineries covered up. And so that you cannot see that little dovetail, or this little dovetail, or the fact that there's anything coming into this, there'll actually be another piece, essentially a veneer piece, that will go over it. Next. So here's an inner view of that particular joint. So it's a little blurry up here at the front, but that is squared off. That's the dovetail right there. It comes back. It is not tapering, so there is no narrowing of this at all. But then what you'll see is right here, and that should be able to be brought into focus, because that's what I focused on in the shot. But there's a transition right here where we go from a dovetail to a straight piece. And actually, we'll deal with that in the very next picture. So here is that front piece of cherry. Here is essentially the dust frame, but it's not actually a frame in this case, it's actually just a single piece of wood. If I were doing this in a full-size piece, that would be a frame, meaning that there's 4 pieces of wood, just like a picture frame type style, so that any expansion and contraction's under control. This piece happens to be just small enough that I can get away with it. But this is actually a piece of poplar rather than cherry. And the bottom one should be loose enough to slide out. And then you can see, you can go ahead and pass that one, that piece around. That just has a little bit of a rabbit on the edges of it to fit into the slot that's been created. I have my own Vanna to perfectly position everything, so. Okay, now the 2 reasons for this is, first of all, in the olden days, it would be a waste of wood to take it back as cherry, the entire depth. The other thing is that actually the poplar is a little bit more stable than the cherry is, so it's actually a better insertion piece. Pine is also a good, nice, stable piece of wood. So they tend to not expand and contract as much once they've gotten to their final size. The one warning though is the fact that since this is poplar, while I'm gonna glue this piece is only about 1.5 inches. So that entire piece will get glued in. When I go to glue this guy in though, I'm only gonna glue in like the first inch and allow for expansion and contraction. So also to plan for that expansion and contraction, the poplar piece sitting in that groove is actually a little short, intentionally, so that it does have room to expand and contract, because there will be some shiplap boards across the back here to deal with expansion and contraction, but they can't deal with boards pushing themselves out and trying to blow that back of the case off. Let's go with the next one. Okay, what I'm showing you there is this section right here pulled out. It's pulled slightly out from the piece. You'll notice actually that it is being held in by this piece right here. This is the only piece right now that's actually holding the rest of that in. This guy, if you can see, I can tweak it. I can move it in and out. Slightly. It's pretty tight joinery. So this piece right here moves, because right now it's not glued in. But when I glue this to this top piece, it's not going to move again at that point. It's a long grain to long grain joint. Let's go to the next one. Okay, 2 different images kind of showing the same thing. These are actually the bottom joints right down here. 2 tenons. And you can see, well, you can almost see, you can see the 1 tenon right there, and then there's a 2nd tenon coming through the piece. And all I've done here is I've taken the piece off and flipped it around so that you can see them as 2 separate pieces. Any questions so far? I'll stop also before I go to the lower case.
What scale are you working at?
Well, this
Are
is...
your tools the same scale as this?
This is approximately a 1/3 to 1/4 scale piece. It's more a matter of the hardware and what's available determines what size the piece has to be, because the hardware is going to be the hard part to find. So the most common jewelry box type sizes of like Sheraton pieces of hardware are actually determining what size it is. And it's not a perfect replica as far as scale, it's an approximate replica as far as scale. Go ahead. This is the upper one. So this piece up here is wide in terms of being tall, not in terms of being deep. this guy, and this guy, well, these three guys are all deep pieces. So you can see here, we've got approximately a 3/4 piece with a 1/4 inch mortise in it. And the tenon that comes up into it is also a 1/4 inch, and we've had to relieve front and back in order to make that happen. Let's see, go ahead. Now, this is the tricky one. This was not in the plan. This is actually the kicker piece, meaning that it's going to sit right about here to prevent these top drawers from dropping as you're pulling them out. And the plan was to use a single piece to do that with, but we ended up with a slight problem. And if you look at it, you could probably see what that problem is. If you're looking close enough. Right, there's a curve in the board. So then you're going to go, well, Frank, what are these little strips here for? Well, instead of having what is about a 5/8 inch thick board, now instead I have about a 1/4, 3/8 thick board to try to flatten out just by putting those curve cuts in it. The beauty of this is this side right here is up against this top side, so it's sitting like this. So guess what? After I glue it up, good luck finding it. But I kind of did a couple of tests with this as I was putting the curves in. This thickness of putting these curves in actually allows me, with only about 1/10 the effort, to flatten this piece out compared to what it needed before. So, yeah, okay, this piece probably sat just a little longer than it should have, but there are ways to work around some of the problems, not all of the problems. It's one of those other things that, who here has ever installed a countertop from like Menards or Lowe's or Home Depot? You've noticed probably that they've got a good curve to them one way or the other. And one of the cabinet maker's tricks is to run curves down through them, because then that allows you to have a little less material to be fighting against you as you're trying to flatten it down. Okay. Any other questions on the top portion of the case? Remember, this portion of the case is sitting like this, where all of the pieces are coming together at dovetails, and all the grain is coming together in the same orientation. So let's go to the bottom. So here's our lower case, which obviously is, why thank you, which obviously is this section of it right here instead. Now, our trick here is, I have these side pieces, 3 sides here, their grain is running like this. Which way is the grain of the legs running? Up and down. So now I have a cross grain situation. This is where you blow furniture apart 10 years after you've made it, and you go, why in the world did that not work? Because you've got cross grains across a wide area. So this is, and to be honest, this isn't super wide. If it was the real piece, it would be mega wide. But even at this width right here, it'll blow itself apart if I were to just somehow or another find a way to glue that together. So let's go to the next. This is looking at the piece from above, like this, basically, and looking down on it, just so that you can kind of get another point of reference as far as how the case is configured. Again, you'll notice that I've got front boards running across with one board, rather than being the width being going front to back. Instead, it's going top to bottom. So next picture. Okay. I pulled apart the back legs, essentially. So you're looking now at a back leg area. So, yeah, it's a little hard to tell in this picture, but looks a whole lot better on the computer, but that's just the way it is. So This is actually the front piece. No, sorry, this is a side piece right here, and this is the back. This is poplar, this is cherry. So I have then taken this piece away and pulled the cherry piece out a little bit. You'll see these lines right here running down through, which were my marks for where to make the mortises at. So the mortises are actually coming in and hitting each other. They cross over in the middle. So that's why each one of these pieces, each one of the tenons going into it, has a 45-degree angle on it. I will tell you from my own experience, the very first time I ever tried to do this, I tried to put the 45-degree angle on there, tried to get it so that they would match up just perfectly. What was the problem?
Too long?
They were still too long. So you're always better off going just a hair short rather than going a hair long on those tenons when you're doing that 45-degree angle. This one I think has maybe 1/8 of an inch before they touch each other. So there's just a little bit of space that's been left available. But because the mortises are on top of each other on the back legs, I've had to put that 45 in. And believe it or not, that little piece of, that little bit more fiber that's there, as opposed to just cutting them off square and just letting them kind of come near each other, will actually cut down about 25% of your strength. So it actually does make a difference in, probably not in this piece, but in the full-size piece, it would make a big difference. Next picture.
Question,
Yeah.
back on the 45s there.
Yeah.
Where they come together, you're saying the 45s are stronger when you do them like that?
When you do a 45, because of just that little bit of extra fiber on the outside,
The long end?
right, when that glues in, it actually significantly strengthens it because of the fact that it's a lever effect, essentially, that gives you that much more strength after the glue up happens. Okay, so this is a front leg. The leg's going off in that direction. So here's the bottom skirt board that is right there. The middle, and then the top. Now you'll notice that this one also has that 45-degree angle on it. These two are actually squared off. And the reason why they're squared off is they're not running into another tenon anywhere. They're running into their own section of the leg. You'll also notice that for the most part I've tried to not overlap the mortises over these mortises, trying to stagger those just a little bit. This one's pretty close, this one right here. But the more that I can keep from bringing them directly together, as long as there's like a little slice of wood there that's one solid piece, the stronger that leg's gonna be, the less likely it is to break apart. So this is actually an image of the top joint itself. This one's easy to do. So this top piece right here, in this case, just has a tenon on it. In an actual full-size piece, this would be a dovetail rather than a tenon. This piece, it's not going to be that critical that I actually do a dovetail on it. But if it was a full-size piece, it would be a dovetail there to help to pull that front back together. And then this is actually an image of this, let's see, this piece right here, which is almost reminiscent of these very top pieces up here, of a single tenon going into it to hold it together. Next. Okay. Now we're getting into this bottom area right here. These pieces, these vertical pieces actually come in and they are tenoned into the top piece. Again, 2 tenons. Why 2 tenons as opposed to 1?
Keeps it straight.
Keeps it straight. Because you don't know what this wood's gonna do 30 years from now. It's gonna want to probably start bending itself over some way, doing something else. By having 2 tenons, I lock it in place. It's not moving. And then you can see it again here, 2 mortises, 2 tenons. And let's see, I'll do the Roy Underhill thing. Yeah, it looks great, doesn't it? That's just the way cherry sometimes is, as you're going through and trying to chop things up and clean them up. That's a little bit of corn fiber. It's in a spot that's gonna be completely encapsulated by the glue joint, so nobody will see it except in these pictures. So, next picture. This is the bottom one. Again, I've got a thin board that I'm going into, so I can only do the single tenon into it. Single tenon going into my 3/4, actually, yeah, that is another 3/4 board. Going into the 3/4 board and then the excess behind it. Go ahead. So this is actually now, let's see if I can orient this right. This is actually looking at, which way do I want to do this? I want to do this like that. You got it?
I got it.
So this joint right here, the way that it's laid out, is this front piece right here. You'll see that there are 2 tenons there, 2 tenons there. Go ahead and go to the, well, and then lower the piece down. This is called a bearer, because this is actually what the drawer sits on. There's bearers, there's guides, and there's kickers, are the 3. So it's bearers, guides, and kickers oh my. That's how you know. And you'll see that there is a tenon here. It is intentionally tenoned in the middle of the piece, not up here at the end of the piece. And then that prevents the bearer from being able to work its way up in the future. Next picture. This is the back side. So this is a piece of poplar because it's my bearer. This is the back piece of poplar. There's a mortise right here. There's a tenon right here. The tenon's just been made just by doing a curve, just by removing some of the material from the top, basically a dado. And this top piece goes right against this surface. So then the hardest part of this is actually figuring out exactly where that line has to be, because you're going, okay, front to, it never works out the way that you think it's supposed to work out. And so you do like a couple of quick little trials, usually to ensure that you're in the right spot. Next, I think that's it. So, again, oh, that's the thing that I forgot to mention. Why do I have 3 tenons holding the sides to the legs?
So you don't lose strength in the legs and you get the length so it doesn't work.
Okay. There's actually like 2 or 3 reasons. Could you go back to the one where I show the 3 tenons? Still. Okay. Yeah, either one will work. So I've got 3 tenons here. Notice how tight those tenons are top to bottom in the leg. How tight are they? Super tight, loose?
Pretty loose.
They look like they're loose, yeah.
They're fairly loose.
Yeah, see gaps in the ends.
Mm-hmm. Is that bad workmanship?
Stanchion?
She'll say that it's bad workmanship because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
Dad's workmanship, but you know. What that does is that allows, because I've got a cross grain situation, that allows things to expand and contract. But it doesn't allow things to expand and contract if I turn around now and I put PVA glue here, here, and there. Where should I be gluing this piece? Center is one good option. What happens if I glue it in the center now? It expands, and what happens? This end's going to go down some. Well, actually, this is the top, so this end's going to go up some. This end's going to go down some. The real answer is, what do you not want to move in the particular piece that you're doing? And that would be the place where I would put my PVA glue, because the PVA glue becomes like cement. You can use other glues, like a hide glue or something in some of the other locations, because it has a little bit more give to it and will allow things to slide around just a little further. The other option would be that you could always put a pin in it and oversize the pinhole. In other words, take a dowel kind of and slide it in there. And then by making a pinhole that's wider, for instance here, and not gluing this in, you'll keep it held into place, but you'll allow it to expand and contract as it goes. That's probably the most important thing to learn from the entire presentation. So, is just be thinking about whenever you've got cross grain, you've got to be planning for that cross grain movement, one way or another, however you do it. Any other questions?
It's nice little pieces. They're gonna be a jewelry box or?
This is planned to be a jewelry box, basically.
Probably for mom.
A decorative box, yeah, for mom.
He could
So.
even store like something in there if he wants to.
Now,
Yeah, and actually I've been thinking there's that little spot at the very top. I might try to figure out a way to like drop the back panel down somehow so that you can like put, you know, something of value in there. And nobody would even realize that it's there, which means my grandchildren will, you know, inherit it, and all of a sudden it'll drop down and they'll be like, what's this money doing in here? You know, what is this green stuff? We don't even use this stuff anymore. So,
do you plan to build a full-size one?
I would like to build a full size. I would actually like to do both a high and a low boy at some point. And so in some ways this is my
Salesman
prototype.
sample.
Yeah,
Salesman sample.
salesman sample, yep.
So where did you get the plans for it originally?
I actually, this particular one, I actually, does anybody know who Hamilton and Headley are? They are probably the foremost experts on mid-Atlantic furniture. This is actually based on their plans. So,
Did you carve the cabriole legs?
yes, well, and actually, the legs are technically tri-fed, is the actual carving style that they're in. And also, there's shelves for the lower drawer and for one of the upper drawers also.
Oh,
But I wasn't gonna touch the carving side of things tonight, so that would be a whole nother world.
Yeah. It's nice, I like it.
All right, I
Very
guess
good. Good job.
it's all yours, Chris.
Something I should have mentioned before, with everything going, I forgot. Bob Fox was our presenter tonight. He couldn't be here tonight. He's helping take care of his wife. She broke her hip and just got out of the hospital. So if you keep her in your prayers while she's recovering, I should have mentioned that before. So I've got something that I've been working on. I don't have, it's not complete, so I didn't bring it with me, but I got far enough with it that I could present it here as far as the PowerPoint goes. So I'm gonna do that. Give me just a second. I'm gonna put this up here, Bob, if you can hit the space bar whenever we go from slide to slide.
Can I ask Frank another question?
Oh, yep.
As you complete this, are you going to complete this in its entirety before our next meeting?
Sounds like a challenge.
The case will be done in its entirety.
Okay.
The drawers may not be done in their entirety at that point.
I'm really interested in watching your progress on this. Could you see fit to showing up and showing us this next month, or month after, or whatever?
I could be here. February is one of those trouble months for me because I have a Tuesday night commitment every week. But I could be here I could bring it along with in March, just as a show and tell item.
A cool show and tell, just bring us up to date
Yeah.
on progress.
Sure,
I would really be interested in seeing that.
sure.
You made this?
No,
Wow.
who's seen one of these before?
And that's all out of wood too. Yeah, wow.
So who's all seen one of these? You seen one of these? Yeah. So this is what's called a cricket machine. The whole, this is why you're seeing the weird people on the back of cars everywhere, all the strange mugs with sayings that you don't find in Walmart. It's because people are buying these little machines. Now they're down to, I want to say, about less than $200 for the older model, because they've come with a newer one that really doesn't do much more. So these are extremely affordable, but they are essentially a CNC machine. Yeah. You've got a carrier XYZ axis, everything moves. It's a proprietary format, but you can really get a lot out of it because they've unlocked the backside where you can do things with other software and bring it in. Or you can just use their software and make it super easy. But one thing you can do with this that I've not seen anybody else do anywhere locally is you can cut veneers with this as well. So if you go to the next slide. This right here is just a simple drawing that I pulled up and put into their software. They call it a design space. So just this little cow here, and it's got a bunch of gaps in it. You could do a design without the gaps if you wanted. And it's in their design space. They look at it and they say, well, there's 3 different colors there. So they group all those together, and if you can go to the next slide. It groups all you got the different colors as different pieces that are gonna be cut. And then once you're happy with it, you hit make it. It goes to the next one. Now when you're here, and unfortunately the screen I should have made this smaller on the PowerPoint. The way this works is that you put everything on a mat, and it draws this mat in and out while the head moves back and forth for your Y and then up and down for your Z axis. So it tells you to prepare 3 different mats for 3 different colors of wood. It's a machine, you can always outsmart the machine. So to make it easier, you can go to the next slide. You can go through and change in the software and say, well, all the wood's the same color. So that's what I've done. I've went in and just changed the material color on it, and this is point and click, super simple to use. Go on to the next slide. And then when you do that, it puts it all on one mat to make it even easier and quicker to cut. And these are the 3 different pieces. And I go to the next slide. And then I've got a huge selection of small pieces of veneer that I've gotten off online, one of those sample packets that you can buy for almost nothing, that it's like 8x5 pieces stacked so high. So I went through and I found some colors that I liked. Go to the next slide. And then I just applied them. And these mats, I should have brought one with me, are sticky. So they have a light grip, a medium grip, and an extra strong grip. And this is their strong grip. And that's a brayer, just a roller to roll it on there, get it nice and tight. Go to the next slide. And then I went ahead and put all 3 on one mat. And the mats are gridded out for an imperial and then also metric, if you go that way. And then then I took, and to make sure this doesn't come up, because this is a pretty hard material, put masking tape around each one of these pieces of veneer. And then this one it's hanging off the end, so if you go to the next slide, I just taped it along the back, just to make sure they didn't pop off. Next slide. Then on the screen of your computer, it shows that mat with the grid lines. So looking at the physical mat, you know that, hey, I need this to sit here within this part of the grid, and this one needs to be over here, and so forth. That aligns it right where you've put your material right there on the mat. Go to the next slide. And then when you send that to the machine, you set the mat on the machine, it sucks it in there, and go to the next slide. And this is supposed to be a video that should play, which I don't know if it will because of this computer. Hit space one more time and see if it plays. No, I didn't. So go ahead and go back real quick. Hit the back.
Shift tab.
No, just hit the back arrow. Yeah, it didn't show up. But you see how that mat's been sucked up in there? And it's just like any other CNC machine you see running, except for instead of that gantry moving forward and back, it's just pulling that mat in and out. But go to the next slide. When you're done, this is what you see. This is a circle that I put in there just to basically, once you pull that mat out, you've lost your, you're not zeroed in anymore. So all that mat's still hung up in there. I took a pick and just made sure that circle would pick out, because if it didn't cut all the way through my veneer, I could hit cut again, and then it would go and cut the exact same spot again. So that was just a test real quick, but you can see how easy this stuff pops out once it's cut. Now, this is a mistake that I made. I was just in a hurry. In fact, this whole project was about 40 minutes of messing around. But I grabbed a piece of veneer where that grain is spread way out. And because this is just a drag blade that's being drug around, and it follows 4 times or 5 times to cut all the way through. So it cuts over itself 5 times. And because of that, it started grabbing up here at the top and just destroyed that veneer. I had to grab another piece of lighter colored veneer that had a much tighter grain, and then I had no problem whatsoever. So that's just something when you're using a drag knife on veneer. Make makes a mess. Maybe next slide. And then when you pull this off, you take the backside and you curl that plastic off, and that wood just stays straight. Same if you use cardboard or any other material. If you pull the material off the other way, it all wants to curl. So you just pull that off the back. Go ahead and pull up next one. And then you have all your pieces. This is as far as I got with it.
That's cool.
With this design, having the gaps in, it makes it a little more challenging than a traditional like marquetry design where everything is butted up right against each other. Because it's really hard to get this to transfer to your piece of wood and so forth. But hit the back button.
What'd you call it, machine?
That's called it's Cricut.
Yeah.
So Cricut sells right now. They're selling what, Cricut Joy, which is this little thing. It's junk. Don't buy that one. Then they have the Explorer or Express, and then for just a few dollars more, they have the Maker, which is their highest end. And they have a Maker and a Maker 3, their new one, which all it does is cut a little bit faster and allows you to use this more expensive vinyl that they've created in-house. So it's really not worth the extra money. So for I think it's like
$229 is the Explorer 2 at least, so it's
somewhere around there.
She works at Hobby
I work
Lobby.
at Hobby
Yeah,
Lobby.
and it's cheap. It's for a CNC machine that if you want to do some of the smaller stuff, you could even, and since it's a drag knife, you don't have to do any tolerances with when you're trying to figure this out in your software. You just take and you can take a picture out of a coloring book, take a picture with your camera, upload that, and turn it into whatever you want. It is super simple to use, and then it does all the other stuff that you see, all the vinyl work, all the vinyl on cars you see, the vinyl on mugs, the vinyl on, and then cuts cardboard, make cards, all that garbage. But for like marquetry work, especially if you're not able to use the fret saw, like it just I'd shake too much for that. This is one way to do that. So, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a $12,000 CNC machine for sale.
You get that bunch of crickets?
Do you have to set the Z like you do on a CNC?
You don't. So this machine, when in the software, you tell it what you're using, and like for this, I just selected wood veneer, and then it comes up and it has the pressure of basically when it lowers that bit, it's measuring the pressure on the material, and then you can also select. It says a little less or a little more. So you select your material, and if it doesn't work out, you can go a little less or a little more. And you can also create custom material. Like the dollar store sells this vinyl that's the dollar roll, super cheap stuff, super cheap. So you've got to have custom settings. So I played around with it for my wife until I got a custom pressure and setting to cut that really cheap vinyl perfect every time. So you can do custom stuff where you can just select, this is what I got, and see how it goes. It is. When it comes to the machine, the biggest problem I see with that machine when people complain about it is they want to do custom stuff all the time, but they don't know how to use like Inkscape or Illustrator, your vector software to create vector images, and then they throw it out the window because they get frustrated with it. But if you're already using a CNC, or you want to get to learn how to use a CNC and learn how to use that software to create something, I got this picture in my mind, I want to draw it. You learn how to use that vector software to draw it. And then this is the cheapest way you can turn that digital image into something physical that I'm aware of on the market today. So fun for small stuff and all that. You want to get the bigger stuff, you got to talk to this guy about buying a CNC machine.
Dustin?
Yes.
You may have mentioned this, did you just use the standard drag knife, or did you get a specific, a tool for being able to cut through the veneers?
That's a great question. Yes, when you buy this machine, it comes with the drag knife for you cutting vinyl and cardstock. You have to buy a different drag knife that's has a deeper cut in order to do this, or if you want to do leather, because you can cut leather with it, you've got to have that specific drag knife that cuts a little deeper for that. This is where they, just like any other system, they got to make their money somewhere, so they've got all these different parts and pieces. But if you're only doing certain things, you only got to buy one part. So that makes it pretty good. This is the company that was, a little while back, they wanted to limit everybody to how many custom uploads they could do. And it was a huge nationwide cry amongst people that use this, and they backed off on it. So it's still completely open. You can use your own software, create your own stuff. and our own digital designs and turn them into anything you can think of. So even if you have a marquetry magazine with the plans, you can just take a picture with your phone, upload it, and cut it. So, any other questions? Yes, scrapbookers. It's famous with scrapbookers, yes. I guarantee everybody in here knows somebody who has one of these. You just ask around and they're gonna have it. You buy that one drag knife and there it is. Huh?
We all know you.
Yeah, I got this for, I bought this for my wife's Christmas present and she's been cutting stuff on it. I saw something about cutting veneer and I was like, oh, you know what, I bet we can make that work.
So she got a chance to use it?
Little bit. Not much.
So now it's your machine, right? You know, you buy a new one, right?
So, good.
All right. Very good.
Let me get this off the screen.
Dustin, you're a real cutout.
So we're going to show and tell. If I can get this off the screen here somehow. Sorry. We have show and tell items.
I got one.
Go ahead.
There's a book that's been around in one of its versions, I think since the 60s and probably 70s. Anybody ever heard of it? Make a chair from a tree? I've heard about it for years, and I always thought it was an interesting chair. It's the first guy to come up with, I think he's the one that actually termed the wood green woodworking, where you're working with a fresh log and splitting the pieces out of it. But this is a chair, if not his complete design, what he turned it into. It was kind of like, he's passed away now, and actually he decided to do his Genie about 20 years before he passed away. So it's Genie Alexander, and I always thought it was a neat chair. I made a lot of the Windsors and stuff like that, but I decided to try this one. I made a couple of them, just put at the table and see if we like sitting around on them. Might make some more. It was a neat chair to make. Took me a long time because I made two and there was lots of interruptions. I bet I started on it 5 months ago. And then, so it's all Morrison tenon joinery. And one trick on these is the side stretchers and the front and back stretchers are at different heights, but they do intersect each other. So once you put the sides of the chair together, then you drill these holes and it actually cuts into the other tenons. So it locks them in there, on top of being, you're controlling the humidity on all these joints. So you got super dried rungs going into basically wet green legs and back pieces. So once you get, it's a tight joint anyway, once it gets together and the moisture equals out, it'd never come apart. This chair weighs 6 pounds and you had to hold a 300-pound man. But the other thing about it was the seat. Never done any weaving before, and this is a herringbone pattern with a 1/4 inch going for the width, and then the warp, which is front to back, is a 1/2 inch. It was an interesting project. If I make more, I'll probably make them a little bit bigger, because for me, the height's fine, but I end up sitting in like this. And I'm gonna cut these off too. They show you to leave them 1 inch high, but I talked to some people and they said they always cut them down to 1/2. And that's more just, I was worried about it splitting out, that's why I didn't cut them down anymore. They said they've never seen that happen. So
What species?
that's white oak. This is a tree from my godparents' front yard over in Cokie Mill. So it's kind of special that way too. Then I just coated it with 2 or 3 coats of tung oil that I thinned down to, I don't know, 50% or something. And that's it. I think it's a handsome little chair.
Looks good.
And the lightness is what is crazy as hell. But yeah, a lot of times the seats are done with bark, but never having woven a seat before, I didn't want to spend the money for that. Reading's cheap, and well, I like it fine as long as it holds up. and if not, I can always redo it and tree bark. Yeah, but that's, I've never worked with that either, so that's, also I didn't wanna throw that in on this project. But, yeah, so that's what I've been up to lately. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll send this paperwork around while I'm talking.
Mineral spirits, wine. So it soaks in easier.
I guess this is a large salad bowl. It has a thick wall and it's quite heavy because it's made out of teak. The teak came from Thailand and it was made in Norway. I did not make it. It was brought to me for repair. You see, this round bottom piece has vertical grain. And when you put these barrel staves around the perimeter, you have unequal shrinkage and contraction. As a result, there was a big crack here. But somebody prior to me had tried to repair it. And getting that old glue out of there was a real bear. The crack was wider here and almost imperceptible here. And you can't get in there and pick hard glue out of something an inch thick very easy. So I ended up taking a hacksaw and cutting right down through it until I got close to where it was already glued together. And then I put a strap clear around it, and it was a fiber strap. I had two kinds of straps to go, and with something this big, about the time you got it as tight as you wanted it to be, you had run out of movement in your mechanism. So I put in, besides that, I had an F clamp with a real deep reach, and I put that across the bottom with one arm here and one arm there, so I'd have access from the inside and the top. This has probably 5 applications of tight bond glue. I hope the guy is satisfied with the repair. Teak wood, you know, is very oily, and I'm surprised there weren't more splits elsewhere. Anyhow, you're supposed to treat it with a fast-acting solvent and sand every surface before you glue it up. And there's a half a dozen woods that are like that, just oily woods. Tight bond 3 would be best. Some gorillas were recommended, but the very best wood for an oily, best glue for an oily wood is the type that it comes as a powder and you mix it with water, and that has better adherence. So you scuff sand it with, say, 80 grit, and I also used a fingernail file, an emery board for a fingernail, and a metal fingernail file. But you scratch the surface of the wood with, say, 80 grit, you wipe it down with a solvent, denatured alcohol, or one of the quick drying ones, and then you put your glue in right away before more oil seeps to the surface. Any questions?
Do you know what the original glue was that they made it with?
No.
No.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna take it off the chair, captain's chair. and it come loose, and I sat on it. I broke it out, looking for a way to fix it, rebuild a new one, or whatever, so.
That'd be the surest way.
Epoxy.
If anybody here thinks they could give them a hand after the meeting, please go with them and see about different ways you think that you can go about that.
It's been broken before and re-glued. I don't know what they used or anything, but I broke this one.
Do we have any other show and tell?
Repair it or make a new one. Any way I can get it done.
Repair.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody who got up here and presented some. Just remember that the presentation is a show and tell with PowerPoint. So if you have something that you'd like to present, you have pictures, it's not a big deal. Just email me, let me know. You can even send me the pictures. I'll put them on the PowerPoint for you to get them up here. We can always fit you in somewhere. So if there's something you want to show, but we can get you up here. So next month we have Bob Steimel, Jerry Marsick, and Dennis Gross next month for presenters. Don't forget to leave a couple dollars on the table for a tip for our server who's helped been great in here. And what else do I have? Oh, items for sale. Does anybody have any tools for sale?
Besides the CNC.
Dude, were you able to?
No interest in the table saw yet.
No interest yet? Alright, so Paul has that table saw. I sent the email out about the that Craftsman cast iron top with the cast iron router. And do you have a price on that?
No, I don't. Really looking for a best offer.
Okay.
I mean, it's 3 years old, so I don't need much for it.
Two and a half
It'd be,
by 5 foot.
if you're working with just a pop-up contractor saw or
5
pop-up
axis.
box saw type saw, this would be a great upgrade if you got the room. Something to think about. I have a 12-inch Craftsman lathe, one of the old lathes, with the copier, the copy crafter, whatever they called it, and some extra tools for $30 if anybody wants it, because it's a restore job. I even got the motors. I'm not gonna restore it, I don't have time, and it's taking up room. So for $30, if anybody wants to get into lathe work and has a little bit of time to take care of some rust, it's everything you need to get started, so just let me know. And the only other thing is, don't forget in April, we have the Tight Bond rep coming up. So something to keep in mind, that April's meeting, we won't have any presentations, it'll just be the Tight Bond represented up here the whole time. Anybody have anything else?
We're in May, is that right?
I'll have to look at it.
I'm sure it is, but I thought you had it started.
Oh, I just got next month.
What's the next meeting?
Next meeting is Tuesday, the first Tuesday in February, which is
It's
Second.
the first of February. So February 1st is our next meeting here at 6, 5 o'clock to 6 is social hour. Any other questions?
Are we still doing this on the internet now, streaming this meeting?
Yes, this is streaming. The last email I sent out about the meeting has a link on there, and that link never changes. So if you don't for some reason get a current email, you can go back, and that link never changes to these meetings.
Gotcha.
So, I had a couple emails from a couple of members who weren't comfortable coming out this month because the numbers changing with COVID. And that, right here's the link. You can join us right there. So, any other questions? No?
Good job.
So we still have a few minutes. There's no rush to rush out of here if you want to socialize for a little while before you go. So thank you everybody.
Very good. All right. Very good, guys. You got the job.
Did you ever find out who else is down for